dialogue. On the other side, we have Georgetown professor Michael Eric Dyson, a nationally recognized expert on civil rights, who argues Trump is emboldening white supremacists. He's the author of 21 books, including What Truth Sounds Like. Thank you both for doing this discussion.
Thank you for having us.
Candace, when you look at that rhetoric and you look at what appears to be a shift in the way Donald Trump talks, do you think he is embracing a type of racial division that is problematic for us to operate as a civil society?
Well, the first thing that I look at is the date of the tapes. It's remarkable that we are pulling tapes and you've gone into the archives and we're looking at the year 2000. I think people are entitled to evolve their thoughts over 18 years. The second thing that I think is quite remarkable here is that we're talking about racial division and what sows racial division. I think the fact that every time I'm invited onto this network, I'm being asked to dispute another black person. The black community is broken up in general, and I don't want to partake in any of that. We're just ending a weekend where 71 black people were shot in Chicago, 13 of them killed, and we're not talking about that. Instead, we're talking about old tapes.
We're going to talk about all of it. You have a problem?
No, we're not. I have a problem that we're doing wall-to-wall coverage on two
with who you're appearing on this?
No, I don't.
Candace, you have a problem with who you're appearing on this segment with?
I'm respectfully saying to him that we should both decline tearing apart the black community for the sake of television. And because MSNBC always invites me on to do that, I am declining to do so when our community is mourning the 71 people.
This is the moon, Candace, by the way.
To stop this warfare and come together and talk about
this is a crappy little $10 telescope with a $30 cell phone on it. Doing video of the moon, just so you know.
It means that people change over 18 years, which, shocker guys, they do.
Well, I'm going to have the professor respond, but I have to respond on behalf of myself. You knew what you were invited to discuss, and we're happy you're here. It's very important to me in this show that we have these conversations and invite a lot of people of all perspectives. If there's a problem with that, I think you knew what the invite was to begin with. Professor Dyson, your thoughts?
Well, look, we're dealing with a person who has not only radically emboldened the prospects of bigotry in this country, the resurgent, recrudescent hate that he has articulated. If you can't beat him, coin him. So he opposes Pat Buchanan on the one hand when it's to his own political advantage, and then subsequently when the real beliefs emerge from Mr. Trump, we see that his vicious animus toward black people, gay people, Mexicans, Muslims, women, and the like is a kind of cornucopia of hate that has been brashly articulated by a man of manifest lack of serious coherence, chaotic intelligence, and the lack of an ability to really express himself by not only pulling upon the strands of history, but refusing to take into consideration what's going on today. So I think in one sense, if we're going to talk about if we're going to be honest about Donald Trump, he has not helped black people. He has not enabled African-American people to move forward. He's riding a crest and a wave of economic prosperity put in place by his predecessor, Barack Obama. He has refused to acknowledge the centrality of police brutality and unarmed black people being assaulted by people in this country. So the reality is that Donald Trump, while claiming through rhetoric to be for the blacks, what he has done is undermine the capacity of African-American people to exist in a country where it's not only about the economic facts and the wherewithal that we contend with, it is about the tone, it is about the rhetoric, it is about the atmosphere that has been unleashed here. And Donald Trump has done something very dangerous and destructive. He can't see the difference between an anti-fascist and a person who supports it. He can't see the difference between somebody who's against black people and who is for them. So when he draws false equivalencies between both sides, he negates the ability to say, look, I believe in rational civil discourse in America, but I take a side morally and politically. We are now 53 years to the date.
For a quick second.
53 years, let me finish this. 53 years beyond the date of the voting. Let me finish this.
We'll go to the professor, and then we'll go back to you, Candace. Professor Dyson, you can finish, and then we'll go back to Candace.
Here we are, 53 years past the Voting Rights Act. We've seen the resurgence of an attempt to nullify and destroy that black vote. We've seen attempts to somehow circumnavigate around black political citizenry and agency. So all I'm saying is, if we're concerned about black people, we got to be concerned about poverty, inequality, lack of access to education, plus the kinds of sorts of violence that we see directed toward black people in this country.
Candace, the conversation, sorts of violence that's being directed towards black people. Am I black? I'm curious if I'm black because I'm a black conservative and I am not hearing anything that is said about the fact that about 25 white Democrats assembled to kick me out of a restaurant yesterday, to throw water and to throw eggs at me because I am a conservative that supports Donald Trump. The very same Donald Trump, okay? The very same Donald Trump that has not Obama. Obama did not do this because President Trump has been slashing regulations and it has brought this economy to a place it has never been at, okay? We have unemployment that's an all-time low for both women. You brought up women, you brought up gays, you brought up black people. Unemployment is at an all-time low across the board. You guys should refuse to acknowledge the truth that we are doing better. You want to talk about fascists? Antifa attacked me. This is an all-white gang that attacked me and attacked an all-black police force in Philadelphia, okay? And they claim to be fighting racism. How is it plausible, Professor, that you allowed this to happen to your community because you decided that because we are ideologically conservatives, you are okay with this? You're okay with the resurgence of the Democrats?
I haven't said a word.
Don't cut me off.
I haven't said a word.
You just said a lot of words.
I didn't say a word. No. I said nothing about you.
Now you're
I
cutting
said
me off,
nothing
okay?
about you.
No.
So I find what happened to you
I still have to keep it going. Candace, we're going to take a pause. Candace,
I didn't get to
I'm
finish.
going to let
He was
you...
for 5 minutes straight. You are attacking.
I'm going to let you finish, but if you're calling him a professor, I have to give him time. So Candace, go
Liberals
ahead.
have been attacking conservatives, and you guys say nothing about it. Blacks were attacked
said nothing about
yesterday,
you.
okay? And they were attacked because they support Donald Trump. Black support for Donald Trump has doubled since this time last year. You guys can try to pretend that he is pushing in a racist era in this country when in fact we know the Democrats are the racists, have always been the racists. The parties never switched, and you should know this as a civil rights person. You know the history. You know people under the hood of the KKK
let me respond.
were
Candace,
Democrats, and the party never switched. And
Candace, I'm gonna give the professor a chance to respond.
Yesterday and defend our community being attacked because we support Donald Trump, because we understand that we have better economic opportunities under him than we ever had in Obama. And shame on you for starting in Obama.
Candace, I'm going to give the professor a chance to respond.
Under his administration, he allowed the bloodshed, and Trump wanted to send the National Guard, and the Democrats stopped him. I'm really done with this. I'm done with this
I don't want to
racist
have to
narrative.
talk over
Let's
people,
talk
but
about
we
the
have to
facts.
go back and forth.
Let's talk about
Candace, we're going to have to take a pause there. Couple things. You're making a personal attack on the other guest, so I have to give them a chance to respond.
Let me respond. First of all,
I also have to say, and Professor, I'm going to go back to you. I also have to say the topic of this discussion that we have tried and perhaps are failing on live television to discuss is Trump policy. The incident that you're referring to yesterday is not necessarily this topic.
It's a Democrat policy.
And so we have to gather more information. So I'm going to go to the professor. Professor, you get a chance to respond, sir.
First of all, I never said anything about Miss Owens. I never directed any animus, any particular rhetoric, any conversation toward her. So first of all, when you say you allowed it, first of all, I'm not God. I don't control the universe or weather. I don't control the atmosphere, geology, or geography. So I did not point these people toward you. I think it's reprehensible that any human being is, if you will, put out of a particular establishment because of her ideology. I think that that's problematic. So I did not suggest that. Number two, yeah, you are black and I am black. But that doesn't mean that automatically we agree with everything. Of course not.
We should
Let me
respect one
finish.
another.
Now, what I'm saying to you is that when you talk about me as disrespectful, here's what's interesting to me. You have come on here and, like Donald Trump, reduce everything to narcissistic self-preoccupation and articulation of your. Let me finish.
What years that the left has no idea that the world did not begin in 1776. 3 years of traveling the country and facing off with hysterical liberals. And that is my scientific conclusion, that they haven't the slightest idea that anything exists or that anything ever existed outside of the United States of America. Let me give you a recent example. You will all recall when the left, which in my opinion has morphed into a doomsday cult, feverishly and accurately predicting that everything President Trump says or does will end America. But you all recall when they once again prophesized our doom when Iranian terrorist Soleimani was slain in a military operation. You remember that, right? This is the beginning of World War III, their headlines read. They promised us we were going to head straight into World War III. It was a remarkable day because it was the day that we watched Democrats and liberals, the ones who have been shrieking about sexism, misogyny, and the need for more feminism, turn into passionate defenders of the state of Iran. The country whose constitution quite literally states that a woman's life is worth half that of a man's. A country where women are punished by law for up to 10 years in prison if they are caught not wearing a veil, suddenly became the apple of the left's eye. Of course, the war never happened, but in the midst of their delirium, a tweet went out from resident anti-American Colin Kaepernick. And the tweet read, exactly, and I quote, "There is nothing new about American attacks against black and brown people for the expansion of American imperialism. America has always sanctioned and besieged black and brown bodies. American militarism is the weapon wielded by American imperialists to enforce its policing and plundering of the non-white world," end quote. Fascinating. A rant about black and brown bodies being imperialized, a word that I must assume Colin either doesn't know the definition or the history of, used in defense of Iran. And so, of course, you know me on Twitter. I felt it necessary to mention to Colin, gently of course, you know me, I'm very nice on Twitter, to mention to Colin that this particular country of brown and black bodies used to be known as Persia, and rather unfortunately for his implied thesis regarding their perpetual victimhood at the hands of white people, Persia used to be an empire, quite literally an imperial dynasty for 200 years, almost as long as America has been alive. It was once the most powerful state in the world, imperializing regions from Egypt to India, regions of, you guessed it, black and brown people. And while I have to say that I was not
Wait
shocked
till
to
you
learn
see
that
what I'm
Colin
going to show
Kaepernick
you.
has evidently never picked up a historical textbook, I will say that I was shocked that he hadn't at the very least seen the movie 300. A little movie where the black and brown bodies are looking to imperialize the white bodies in Greece. Maybe he thought it was all made up and fiction. Or maybe Colin Kaepernick isn't earning millions to tell the truth. Maybe he's being paid millions to convince black and brown bodies that they are oppressed, to keep them angry and confused and uneducated.
Yep.
Which could explain why
You're going to love this. You are going to love what I'm going to show you.
I quote, "The U.S.
As I'm
government
getting
has
to know you
stolen
more.
over 1.5 billion acres of land from indigenous people. Thank you to my indigenous..."
Hold on a minute.
They are intentionally making things worse because tearing down what we have is a prerequisite to building utopia. I think that is the answer to what we're seeing.
That's exactly correct, and this is a especially sensitive topic for me today because I spent the earlier part of the day speaking to a North Korean defector, and I was actually horrified hearing her speak about what she lived through while she was in North Korea and understanding that, you know, what they're really trying to do right here in America is build exactly that model where the state controls and owns and operates everything.
Yeah.
You will have nothing and you will be happy because you will have served some higher purpose, some higher government, some higher idea, which you're talking about, these ideologues, some higher idea. Green new energy, you did it for your planet. You need to have nothing. You need to shut down these pipelines. You're not going to be able to afford to fill up gas, but look at you. You should be proud because now this is a part of the Green New Plan. And by the way, if you want anything, you got to worship government. This is the whole reason why when you talk about what is the thing that connects these attack of the education system, why are they dumbing down kids? Why are they being so horrible about families? Why do they want children turning to government and not to their parents for answers? Well, one thing that ties this all is that they don't want there to be anything but the state in your individual lives. In fact, told me was that there was no concept of love, right? She said, we don't have words like stress. We don't have words like social justice in Korean. She's like, there's no concept of this in the state because they don't want you to even think about that because you're supposed to know that this is how things are supposed to be. Every movie that they're allowed to watch in North Korea, and this really terrified me, the only concept of anybody dying is for the state. The highest honor is for the state. We're seeing right now, people thought this was a radical concept years ago. This is a Republican talking point. It's not. We are seeing America being radically transformed into a communist country. That is what is happening right now. People need to wake up to this sucker. I cannot say enough because it's happening quickly. How have they done it? They needed an existential crisis. Well, COVID-19 is their never-ending existential crisis. This is why we have to take everything that you own. This is why we have to shut down your businesses. This is why you can't earn a living while we take trillions for ourselves because we're here to help. No, we're not. We're here to take over every aspect of your lives and welcome you to a socialist reverie.
It just feels like the cost of this is getting really high. You can feel underneath, I mean, there are a lot of signs there without being too specific, but you can kind of feel the society going sideways underneath, I mean, you could see actual unrest. That's the last thing anybody wants. Do you think they're aware that they could be putting too much pressure on the population?
I think they're aware, but I don't think they're scared. You know, I think this is something that's been going on for a very long time. This didn't begin with Joseph Biden. We know that. You know, Hillary Clinton would have been a person that helped to catalyze this had she had become our president, but she didn't get that, and they felt like Trump actually stopped their plans. You know, they started this process very slowly, and nobody really was awake to it. I certainly wasn't. I thought, okay, maybe we are just trying to do some socially good things. Maybe they are just trying to help everybody out. But then suddenly, when Trump was in office, it became very apparent that something else was happening in this country. You know, this obsession and focus on racism, on white supremacy, on making children say, look,
That started under Obama, Candace, and you know that.
Racism, not the obvious fault of what's standing in your face, which is that it's the fault of government. Every hardship that we're facing right now in this country is because of the government. We're not building back anything better right now, Tucker, and Americans need to wake up to that fact.
Candace Owens, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
The record, not my opinion, definitely a fact. It does mean that I am not going to play a part of the broken black culture that always wants to martyr criminals. Why are we pretending that this criminal should be upheld as a citizen, as a martyr in black America? So this entire narrative is complete smoke and mirrors. It's all made up. It's just election fodder. It's white versus black because it's an election year, not because black Americans are suffering at the hands of police officers more than white Americans.
Candace Owen. That rotten. She's the worst. I can't think of a worse way to make money. She's the most articulate idiot.
I didn't make money on that video.
She's so articulate. She tell you how stupid she is precisely. They killed him, and that wasn't right, so he's the guy. We're not desperate for heroes in the black community. Any nigga that survives this nightmare is my goddamned hero.
So first and foremost, that video, it still, you know, is #1 most viral video I've ever done, which shocked me. I mean, it was such a casual thing. I was sitting up there talking to my husband outside in DC, and I was just like, I can't even stand this anymore. It's a bizarre thing to me because I grew up with uncles that are addicted to drugs. It's very weird to me to try to turn somebody who is a drug addict, turn somebody who is a criminal into a martyr. It's very weird that there are murals and statues erected of George Floyd at the same time that they're fighting having a statue erected of Clarence Thomas. It is really a symptom of how cancerous the black community has become. So I'm talking to my husband about it. I'm just like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to allow this lie to make its way around the world. And I just ranted. Literally, I was sitting on the floor in our guest bedroom, and I just ranted, felt like it was a blink, went upstairs. I think I took a nap, and the video went viral is an understatement. 100 million views. It was insane. It was everywhere. People contacting me from Turkey, from the UK, from Australia. I mean, celebrities everywhere were contacting me. And the number one sentiment was thank you, because they had actually bought into the media narrative, because they were just seeing every night, this is what's happening to black men in America, this is happening with black men, and nobody had talked about the fact that this guy was a career criminal. It's very hard to get arrested 9 times, to spend 9 times in jail and in prison before you turn 40. Like, that is the one remarkable thing that George Floyd did, is that he was able to spend that much time in prison before he even turned 40. This man was a drug addict. I mean, he died of drug overdose. Everyone wants to pretend he didn't. He did. He was obviously having a drug overdose. What role Derek Chauvin played in not stopping or getting him the help he needed can be a matter of debate, but there's no question that fentanyl in your system 50 to 100 times more deadly than morphine. Nobody wants to talk about that stuff. So I just wasn't going to allow that narrative to get out because it's just, at the end of the day, it's just harmful. It's a harmful thing to have black Americans conditioned to think that every time one of your criminals dies, you need to go protest and boycott for them. This would never happen to any other community, not the Jewish community. When's the last march for a Jewish criminal that you remember? What about an Asian? When's the last march for an Asian criminal? It doesn't happen. It's just our community. And it's because we have people like Dave Chappelle making you think that in order to prove that you're a real person, and again, I allowed Dave Chappelle to say what he said because I think that there does need to be a protected space for comedy. But if we're really getting at what he's implying here, it's that, it's incumbent upon every black person to defend their criminals. I believe the exact opposite. If you are a criminal, it has nothing to do with you. If you really care about Black lives, you will address the fact that this man tortured Black Americans his entire life. He spread drugs in the Black community. He, was arrested for attacking a woman who had a small child, forcing his way into her home, with a gun, and spent real time in prison for these things. So I don't care what race you are. If you're a criminal, I have no time for you. I have absolutely no time for George Floyd. I've never edited my opinion, not once. Again, that remains exclusive to my opinion on Derek Chauvin. I'm talking strictly about George Floyd. He was a career criminal, career drug addict, and he died committing crime and doing drugs. So I'm Candace, 24/7, 365, and sometimes it picks up and it goes viral, but I never once regretted anything that's been viral on the internet. I say what I say and I mean it. Also, it was kind of cool to have Dave Chappelle, who's like one of the most famous comedians ever, mention me. So, I mean, that's influence, eh? Over the last 2 weeks, I think, because they are starting to realize, it's taken a lot of years for people to realize that there is something to what I am saying about the fact that the media is trying to get Black America to celebrate degeneracy, and they are trying to do this by using various athletes and artists and glorifying them and getting them to say statements that direct Black people into a nefarious direction. So I want to comment right now on the situation going on with Ma'Khia Bryant, because if you at any moment have doubted what I have been telling you, what I have been telling Black Americans in terms of what the goal is, then this situation should add clarity for you. I don't know what Black Lives Matter was ever supposed to be about, okay? I really don't. I've always thought it was a fraudulent organization, and I saw it coming from a mile away, and, congratulations to Breonna Taylor's mom for calling them frauds after her daughter's face was used to collect money. If this situation today with Ma'Khia Bryant, if that's how you say her name, Ma'Khia Bryant, the 16-year-old who was in the process of trying to stab another Black woman to death, and got shot and killed by police officers who saved the life of the Black girl who she was trying to kill, okay? She was trying to kill her.
I know,
That is
right?
what you do. That is what you are trying to accomplish. When you take a knife and you try to stab someone repeatedly, you are trying to commit murder, okay? This woman, young lady, if you'd like to call her, got stopped in the middle of a crime, in the middle of an attempt at murdering someone by a heroic police officer who shot and killed her before she could finish the act. In a sane society, every single person in the world would say, so was there to stop the crime from happening. But we don't live in a sane society, because now the goal in this insane society is to make Black people believe that we have to fight to protect our criminals, that we have to fight to allow our criminals to live through every situation, no matter what they are doing, even if they are trying to kill someone, okay? So Jacob Blake, who admitted that he had a knife, is now a hero and has his name put on the back of the helmets of the New Orleans Saints because he was shot and paralyzed by police officers, despite the fact that a Black woman was victimized by him, despite the fact that a Black woman had called the police on him because he was visiting her, he wasn't supposed to, despite the fact that a Black woman had alleged that he had digitally raped her, okay? He was put on the back of an NFL helmet. Now you have Ma'Khia Bryant. Again, I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. I really don't care how I'm saying her name. I'm going to be honest with you. Now you have Ma'Khia Bryant, a 16-year-old who almost killed someone, and LeBron James decides to post a picture of the heroic police officer and say, "You're next," on his Twitter. I took a second and I thought to myself, okay, before I react to this, maybe he's making a mistake because he doesn't know all the details. Because as we know, the media lies and pretends the person is a good human being. Ma'Khia Bryant's mother came out, even though Ma'Khia was a foster child, and she said, she was about peace, something along those lines. That her daughter was really a peacemaker at the end of the day. I have never seen a peacemaker try to stab someone to death with a knife, but okay, Ma'Khia Bryant's mom, we'll believe you on this one. But maybe LeBron James got deluded by that quote and thought it was real, and he reacted because he deleted the tweet. So I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. But no, he has now followed up on the tweet and essentially said he only deleted it because he didn't want it to be taken out of context. And really, he's hopeful that Ma'Khia Bryant gets justice, that her family gets justice, because he is tired of seeing Black Americans killed by police officers. let's just reset that. He's okay with seeing Black Americans get killed by other Black Americans, and that is exactly what would have happened if the police officer didn't show up. He's just upset when a Black criminal gets taken out by a police officer. What the hell are we even talking about right now in society? How do you not see how degenerate that is? How do you not understand how poisonous that is? That a man with his following is out here saying that Ma'Khia Bryant deserves justice for what? She got justice when she tried to kill someone and somebody intervened. That is literally the function of the police. If your husband, your loved ones, or a friend of yours, and you got into a dispute and someone charged at you with a knife, would you be hoping that that police officer didn't intervene on the basis that that person was maybe Black? Oh, don't intervene, please. Please, allow me to die. Allow me to be stabbed to death. Because I just couldn't bear the idea of you shooting this person that's trying to kill me. We are losing all morality in this society. These people like LeBron James, he's a coward. He's disgusting. I am now physically disgusted by LeBron James. I think he is despicable. I think LeBron James should have all of his sponsorships taken from him. From putting the face of a heroic police officer and saying you're next to him, and then doubling down, okay? And turning around and saying that this girl deserves justice. I think he's despicable. If the situation was reversed, if a Black officer had shot a white person, okay, who was charging another white person and saved the life of that other white person that was being charged, and somebody else had stood up and said, a Black police officer had put a picture of him up and said, this guy, he's next, basically trying to signal to the world that this person is somehow in the wrong, they would have had all of their sponsorships removed. They would have had to step down from the NBA. No questions asked. But LeBron James, I guess, gets to be celebrated because he's Black, so he gets to experience Black privilege, right? He can just say whatever the hell he wants, like he did a while ago when he said, we literally can't go outside, we're being hunted down. All of these things, he gets to add to this rhetoric, he gets to add to this divisiveness, and he gets to encourage Black people to, again, believe that as criminals, you can kill someone and you still have the right to life. Nobody should intervene when you are trying to kill someone. That is what Ma'Khia Bryant was doing. She was trying to kill someone. If you are still asleep and you do not understand what is happening right now, let me tell you what's going to happen next. Police officers are going to start resigning. Mass resignations. People are not going to be signing up for the police academy. Do you want to know whose neighborhoods are going to be the first that are affected by that? Do you think it's LeBron James's neighborhood? LeBron James lives in a $100 million house in Bel Air. From what I've heard, in Bel Air, it's $100 million. Do you think LeBron James, when these police officers resign and they say, what is the goddamn point of me trying to protect this neighborhood, of me risking my life, of me running towards a scenario in which a woman is trying to violently stab someone to death, if I'm only going to be treated like I'm an animal by people like LeBron James who don't even touch their own door handles? You think he's not going to ride along to see what police officers have to do on a day-to-day basis? Is that what you want? If that's what you want, if you would like for police officers to simply stop policing, raise your hand. And let me tell you something. That's what you're going to get. Let me tell you something else. That wish is a racist one, because we all know which are the neighborhoods that need the most policing. We all know that there are minority neighborhoods where the police are called the most to deal with violent crimes. We all know that this scenario is going to lead to more Black death. So if you're a person who goes, well, we just got new police officers, you know exactly what you are doing. I don't blame police officers right now if they want to step down. I don't blame them. Personally, I would almost respect if police officers went on strike. I would respect it. You know what? Let the neighborhoods in Gotham City. Let the neighborhoods, let them riot, let them loot, let them burn. If they want to murder one another, and what would be the purpose of a police officer wanting to hold that badge, have that badge anymore, when this is how we treat them? LeBron James is a despicable human being for this. Despicable. I have no respect for him. If you are a fan of LeBron James, if you are a person that likes basketball, you should never, ever, ever, ever go to a LeBron James game ever again. If you have the sense to understand what is wrong here, I don't care how talented he is. I don't care how many rings he has. What he is doing right now is celebrating perversity. What he is doing right now is celebrating criminality. What he is doing right now is trying to blur the lines, the very clear lines between right and wrong. What the police officer did in the Ma'Khia Bryant situation was right. What LeBron James tweeted about was wrong. If you cannot see that and you think that this video is an example of Candace Owens acting like an Uncle Tom, you're a lost soul and you're a degenerate. If you are watching this and you're thinking that Ma'Khia Bryant is a hero, that Ma'Khia Bryant deserves justice, then you are a degenerate. In my opinion, you are a degenerate. I don't care. I don't care if you're sitting here watching like, oh my God, but Candace, can't you see yourself? It's Ma'Khia Bryant's a black. No, I can't see myself. I don't take a knife and try to kill somebody. But didn't you see yourself at George? No, I don't take fentanyl. I don't do opioids. I haven't been arrested in jail 9 times. Stop telling me to see myself in someone because they have the same melanin as me. I have nothing to do with white criminals. I have nothing to do with Chinese criminals. I have nothing to do with black criminals. I am not a criminal. I am not a criminal. I do not see myself in any of these scenarios. I am an American. I am an American that wants policing, that respects police officers, and believes that criminals belong in prison. And when they are trying to kill someone, they need to be stopped by any means necessary. Thank you for paying attention to this rant. I'm so disgusted with where this society is treading, and I am just sickened by the fact that the Democrats and the left and these athletes, these despicable athletes, are playing a part in what is really just the corrosion of ethics in this society.
It's both. It's all sides, though. Yes, you're right, but it's all sides.
Okay, so is it rape or is it regret? My name is Candace Owens, and you are watching my vlog series, Myth of the Coon. So a 20-year-old young man walks into a college bar with his friends, and a 19-year-old young lady walks into a college bar with her friends. A bunch of drinking is involved, and the two of them begin a discussion. Fast forward to the end, where the two of them end up at her dorm, and you can pretty much guess what happens next. Unfortunately, the next morning, this woman does not recall the events and immediately reports her sexual assault. If this sounds like a nightmare to you, it absolutely was, except not for the woman. I'm talking about the absolutely real story of Armand Premji, a student at USC who was expelled after these sexual assault claims. Months later, and after an investigation where cameras showed that the woman was the aggressor the entire night, the woman coaxed him out of the bar, and the woman signed him in to her dorm, Premji was cleared of all charges. The judge threw away the case. However, the school did not. His expulsion still stands until USC can conduct its own investigation. Too drunk to consent. I mean, this has got to be one of my favorite topics to talk about, because what does it even mean? Does it mean that you are too drunk to remember? Well, do you remember your high school health class where you learned that drinking alcohol, one of the effects is that it can sometimes affect your memory? I mean, what kind of excuse is it that I did a drug and the effects of it are working? Just imagine trying to apply that excuse in any other scenario. Ms. Owens, the charges being brought against you are driving under the influence. How do you plead? Well, Your Honor, I'm glad you asked, because I was too drunk to remember. In fact, I was too drunk to give consent to driving my vehicle. In fact, I'd like to sue Toyota for even allowing me to drive my vehicle while I was drunk. Ms. Owens, the charges being brought against you are breaking and entering, and attempted murder at a gas station. How do you plead? I was high on PCP. Too high to give consent, Your Honor. Absolutely out of my mind. Newsflash, America. Drinking excessive amounts of alcohol can lead you to do some things that you regret. When I was in college, we referred to that period as blacking out. That sometimes led to 4,000 calories being eaten in one sitting at 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't wake up and file a police report against Domino's Pizza. In my right mind, would I have consented to all of those calories and their disgusting pizza? Absolutely not. But I did give them my credit card. In all sincerity, the problem with this idea of being too drunk to consent is that it completely strips women of having any responsibility when it comes to going out or drinking or partying. It basically puts the entire burden on men, which is completely unfair. Women are allowed to go out and they're allowed to get drunk at bars, and men better stay sober or bring a breathalyzer with them. Because I literally know women who were popping bars of Xanax before they even got to the bar when I was in college. How are men supposed to know that? How are men supposed to know that women are purposely blacking out before they even go to the bar? It is completely unfair, and it has gotten out of control. What I'm looking for is for these voices like Lena Dunham and all of these people who were so angry about the Brock Turner case to step up to the plate and be equally outraged over this Armand Kremji case. Because the truth is, this is the culture that they have created. A culture that states that if a woman is drunk, anything she does after the point of being drunk gets wiped clean. It scares me. It honestly scares me as someone who may one day give birth to a son. The society that we are creating that puts so much stress and pressure on men is not a society that I would want my boys to be raised in. Rape to me, when I was growing up, was learning about being date raped and someone slipping something into your drink. A rape to me is the idea of a man dragging a woman who is incapacitated, perhaps because she was drinking, back to his dorm and taking advantage of her when she can't even walk or she is sleeping. Rape to me does not mean a woman getting drunk, waking up the next morning and regretting having sex with someone. Unfortunately, when you drink, you do make bad decisions, and at the end of the day, the only person responsible for those bad decisions are you. Shame, embarrassment, and regret are teachers. That's the way that we edit ourselves, is waking up in the morning and saying, hey, I looked really stupid last night, or hey, I really regret saying that, or I really regret sending that text message last night, and I don't want to ever do something like that again. So maybe I won't drink as much tonight, or I won't drink at all. By telling women that if they feel any shame or embarrassment, they need to file a police report. It's absolutely appalling. I'm sure that some people watching this video might refer to what I am saying as victim blaming. No, it is actually extracting the word victim from the equation altogether. It's about teaching young women about responsibility and how to conduct themselves in public, and once and for all about the very obvious side effects of alcohol. Thank you guys for watching.
Trying to make this like a contentious moment because this is literally why Black America loses right here. Because we allow people with cameras to go hear a whole speech like they do this to me all the time. They take out a couple of sentences you said and they create a whole new headline. And people that were not there.
Ugh, I've been watching this. T.I. gets me so angry.
Go back to hear what was actually said in full context. They do it to me all the time. I know they do it to Trump. He has denounced white supremacy so many times. It's something north, somebody counted of 24 times, and it's on his Twitter feed. So if you want to fact check me, go back to a couple of weeks ago when the shootings happened. He said, America is no place for white nationalism and white supremacy, and it's an issue that has to be tackled. I'm paraphrasing, you can go find it. And let me tell you why the black vote is the easiest vote for Democrats to keep for the last 60 years. Let me tell you something. If people know what you fear, you are the easiest person to control. The Democrats have figured out that Black America is emotionally responsive to the word racism. She says racism, you jump up and you start cheering. You haven't even listened to what I've said to rebut it, okay? I do not consider myself a Republican. I definitely am not a Democrat, but Trump woke me up. I used to be liberal. Trump woke me up to the idea that we're being manipulated by the word racism every 4 years.
Good for
That
you.
aged well. I think there were a bunch of elements of this clip that were taken, and it kind of turned into the T.I. versus Candace thing, and which I think is a shame, because actually, if you look at the comments, people that actually watched the panel, especially people that were in the audience, were really happy with the panel, because I don't think they had ever heard me speak, and people kept coming after me after, being like, why don't you say the stuff that you said on stage like everywhere else? And I'm like, I literally do. You just never get to hear anything I say, because people always parse out just one element of it. But T.I. was the most frustrating person, because he is so fake. I cannot even tell you. So I met T.I. because Kanye introduced us. I don't know how. I think he gave me T.I.'s number. We talked on the phone. Before this panel, T.I. and I had probably spoken on the phone like 6 or 7 times. And the opinion of everything that he gave me on the phone is so different than the T.I. that showed up on stage that day. So he's a true entertainer. So when he gets on stage, he's going to say whatever he thinks he needs to say to get people to get hyped. Whereas everyone else in the panel, despite how much I disagree with them on, they were extremely authentic. Like, especially Killer Mike, who I still talk to today. He's like such an authentic guy. Even Tamika Mallory, who I like am adamantly opposed to. She was super respectful and really nice and genuine. Like, she was being genuine. T.I. came there to entertain. And he's super ignorant, but he's just also, he's two-faced, right? So that was the most frustrating part of the panel, was that T.I. was just being so two-faced, sitting next to me, trying to get the audience hyped and against me, and I was just like, this is not the same T.I. If he gets on the phone with Kanye, he's like, oh yeah, man, I understand. If it's phone with me, he's like, oh yeah, I totally understand. And then he gets by the audience, he doesn't care about
These are
what he
bushes,
said. It's all
trees.
about what is going to make the audience be hyped and hear my point. So he sucks. And more than sucking though is that he got his perfect karma because now T.I. is under investigation. Him and his wife are under investigation for a bunch of like horrible sex crimes. And I don't doubt it. He's actually very disrespectful and denigrating to women in general, and you kind of see that side of him when you spend a little more one-on-one time with him. But overall, I was really very, very happy. I mean, Diddy was sitting in the front row with the panel. I think there needs to be more of it, and people are always like, why don't you do more events like this? I'm like, when I'm invited, I always go. I think we should always go into rooms people think they disagree with you, because that's when you transform the most minds. And without question, so many minds were transformed in the room that day. I would love to be invited to another Revolt Summit, and I stay in touch with a lot of people that are on that stage even still today. Not T.I. Honestly, I don't think it would have been fiery if T.I. wasn't on stage, like, doing so much shouting. I was told it was a political summit. I knew who was going to be on the panel, so I knew that we had different perspectives. I would say Killer Mike is probably somewhere in the middle. Like, he's just like a very kind person, even though he has some socialist beliefs. I don't know where he comes out of left field with. I knew where they all stood, so there were no surprises. Like, I obviously knew that I was going to be, like, the token conservative, and I was fine with that, because I think, I believe what I believe, so I believe that on any stage that I'm on, anywhere, and I have the facts on my side, so I'm never scared or embarrassed to go on stage people that disagree with me.
Footage for you, but we do have some idea of what Jussie Smollett was saying, because he hasn't really changed what he has been saying for the past 3 years. So back in 2019, he argued that only a racist wouldn't take his story at face value.
If I had said it was a Muslim or a Mexican or someone black, I feel like the doubters would have supported me a lot more. And that says a lot about the place that we are in our country right now. The fact that we have these fear mongers, these people that are trying to separate us, and it's just not okay.
This is grass.
Fear mongrels! They were a problem then, they're a problem now. Candace Owens is the host of Candice. She's been following all this for a couple of years now. She joins us with her reaction. Candace,
So I went from the trees to the lawn.
Oh, wow. I mean, honestly, I make that his defense should have actually pled insanity, and I would have bought it. Like, when you listen to the story, you really follow every element of this. Like, Jussie Smollett is not a sane person. And what people are forgetting is that he's asking you to believe, there's this thing called Occam's razor, right? Usually the simplest explanation is the best explanation. He is asking you to believe...
Okay, and then I'm about to walk to a rock.
He wants you to believe, how many black people do you think go through 2 hate crimes in 1 week? That somebody sent him a letter on set, like the Zodiac Killer, right? Cutting out every single letter, and it was from, it was signed MAGA, right? Because this was all about Donald Trump. It was signed MAGA. The police say actually this came from Jussie, right? And then just 5 days later, Jussie Smollett goes to get a Subway sandwich and some eggs at Walgreens at 1 a.m. in the morning on a frigid night. And what do you know? Some MAGA supporters jump out. He doesn't recognize the voice of his lover, right? The person that he has a sexual relationship with, right? He wants you to believe all of these circumstances. His lover's lying on him. He couldn't see at night that these were actually 2 tall Nigerian black men. The police department has it against him. The person that was in the ride-along is lying about what happened. He never said they were wearing a MAGA hat. The police chief is lying on him. I mean, you have to be an absolute fool to believe anything else than what is plainly in front of us. Jussie Smollett lied. It is actually the greatest racial hoax that has taken place at least in the last 3 decades, right? He should face way deeper charges.
Here's a rock.
Right now, way steeper charges. It's actually, in my opinion,
a big rock
should be on the stand. For lessening the charges that are against him.
Well, so you wonder. I mean, what's so? I guess the infuriating part of this is, look, you got caught, you're busted, you did it. It's kind of insulting to the rest of us to pretend you didn't when clearly you did. And moreover, you wonder what percentage of the population will believe that he was framed or whatever.
Absolutely nobody believes this. Nobody believes this but Jussie and the people that want him to get off. And his solution is, I told a really big lie, so I'm just going to tell an even bigger lie to try to get away with it, right? I'm going to move from one conspiracy theory to the next. And the last thing I'll say here, Tucker, is just imagine if the races were reversed. Imagine if 2 white men pretended that 2 black men had attacked them. What would the media media be saying right now? What would be the charges? What would be the demands right now? This is incredibly racist what he did, right? Incredibly racist, meant to cause racial division in this country. And at the end of the day, he's going to get a light tap on the wrist if he even gets that.
I would never defend any of this.
So The Rock is here?
Roberts of ABC,
Oh, yeah, it's up
Deborah
here, too.
Cretchless
Okay.
was on the stand today. Let's see if she's changed her mind about this. Candace Owens, that she hasn't. Great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube.
Miss Owens, obviously this is a gang up on you. You know, we're giving these witnesses the ability to do a rebuttal on you, and so you know, I find it unfair, Miss Ballou. I mean, you know, candidly, for you to show mutual respect and then you to go after Miss Owens is not appropriate. So, Miss Owens, you can have 4 minutes and 34 seconds to respond. However, I'll yield.
Thank you. I believe, Miss Owens, when you used the
Oh, here are the
word
trees.
hilarious, it was
Here's the
referencing
trees. The other one
you
must have been
asking
grass, I
question.
think.
It wasn't to the subject matter of the hearing. Is that right?
That is correct.
And perhaps to have another witness
Unless I went back
insinuate
on it, I don't
something
know.
that is not accurate is
Look
just
at the
not
video.
appropriate, Mr. Chairman, for how witnesses are supposed to behave in front of this committee. I also think you didn't say it doesn't
Getting it,
matter
everybody?
about the
Are you
subject
getting
matter
it
of
yet?
today's hearing. You said there are other subjects that matter as well, and maybe we should spend some time on those. Is that accurate?
That is correct, and they matter much, 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 much more. And I've said that. I said that in my opening, and I will say it again. You know that white supremacy and white nationalism ranks nowhere near the top of the issues that are facing Black America. And the reason that you are bringing them up in this room is because it is attempt to make the election all about race as the Democrats.
Not in my case,
Please
Ms.
don't
Owens.
cut
I'm
me
sorry.
off.
Please do not characterize my motive. Mr. Chairman, it's my time. It's my time. You've got your time, Mr. Madison.
Every
3 more seconds.
Every 4 years you bring up race, and you knew exactly what I meant when I said hilarious, and you just tried to do live what the media does all the time to Republicans, to our president, and to conservatives. But you tried to manipulate what I said to fit your narrative, okay? I was not referring to the subject matter that is hilarious. I said it's hilarious that we are sitting in this room today, and I've got 2 doctors and a missus, and nobody can give us real numbers that we can respond to so we can assess how big of a threat this is. Because you know that it is not as big of a threat as you are trying to make it out to be, so you can manipulate. And the audacity of you to bring up the Christchurch shooting manifesto and make it seem as if I laughed at people that were slaughtered by a homicidal maniac is, in my opinion, absolutely despicable. And I think that we should be above that. To try to assign reality or